Good evening, and welcome to the Baker Institute Student Forum Fall Debate between the Rice Young Democrats and the Rice Conservative Forum. My name is Gabe Quadri, and I'll be your moderator this evening. 2 weeks from today, Americans will go to the polls across the country to elect the next president of the United States. Tonight, we will debate the merits of the two major candidates. Some of you likely have already decided who you're going to vote for, while others still might be undecided. Some of you will be voting in key swing states absentee, while others might be voting in Texas or another pretty predetermined outcome. No matter where you are on that continuum, I hope that you leave tonight not only with a better understanding of the candidates' positions, but of the reasons behind those positions, because that understanding is the first step in beginning the conversations and agreements necessary to solving our country's toughest problems. Our team tonight will begin with brief opening statements before entering into a question and answer debate. We will then, toward the end, have about 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A from the audience, and we'd like you to write your questions on a card and pass them to our ushers on the side, our business representatives. And please go ahead and write your name and also if you'd like the question to be to both parties or to one team in particular. Representing the Rice Conservative Forum tonight will be Rohini Cigaretti, Anthony Lauriello, James Dargan, and Rachel Landsman. Debating for the Young Democrats will be Rahul Rekhi, Raj Shalhotra, Hira Baig, and Tanya Rajan. It takes a great deal of courage to come and debate in front of your peers, so I ask that you please give them the utmost respect throughout the debate tonight. I would also like to take a moment to thank the Baker Institute and the Baker Institute Student Forum for all their support for this event. So without further delay, please join me in welcoming tonight's debaters. So we'll start with the Rice Conservative Forum opening statement.
Well, firstly, thank you all for being here tonight. I know everyone's busy with midterms, but I think it will be a great debate. Firstly, we'd like to start with the idea of how President Obama was elected, and let's take a look back to 2008. There was a wave of optimism. We saw him as the next FDR. He was going to pull us out of the recession, leave us with promises like the New Deal. But what exactly did we get? Some people may think that we got someone much more like Carter than FDR. With that, let's look at America today. Firstly, consider unemployment rates, which are currently standing at 7.8%, with 53% of recent college graduates being underemployed or unemployed. We are down 4 million jobs since when President Obama took office, and 3% of workers who were previously looking for work have dropped out of the employment search. Let's look at our lack of economic growth. We've seen that the second quarter GDP for 2012 was 1.5%, whereas in our first quarter it was at 2%. Our economy is shrinking under the wave of President Obama. Finally, we cannot ignore the increasing debt under President Obama's regime. We have seen debt come to $15 trillion, $5 trillion of that being the responsibility of President Obama. So what will we do in a country where 63% of us think that America is going in the wrong direction? Or 1 in 6% are living in poverty. As Timothy Geithner said of the Obama administration, they don't have a plan, but what they do know is that they don't like yours. Let's turn to Mitt Romney, on the other hand, who has a brilliant 5-point plan for establishing 12 million jobs by the end of his first term. Firstly, Mitt Romney will lead us to energy independence by 2012 by establishing the Keystone Pipeline and removing regulations that have stifled the coal industry, which would have provided domestic energy resources for our country. Secondly, Mitt Romney will give our workforce the skills that they need to succeed. 53% of recent college graduates are underemployed or unemployed. How can we not put their use and their skills to better use? Furthermore, these students have been stifled by nearly $26,000 on average of student debt upon leaving higher education. Thirdly, Mitt Romney will help foster relationships that lead to better trade for the United States by forging ties in Latin America and curtailing the unfair practices of nations like China. Furthermore, Mitt Romney will look towards forging new economic markets the United States has previously not explored. Fourth, and most importantly, is that Mitt Romney will work towards cutting the U.S. deficit. Mitt Romney promises to cut discretionary spending, excluding the military, by 5% by the end of his first term. Furthermore, Mitt Romney looks to cap government spending to be 20% of the United States economy. We cannot forget Mitt Romney's tax reforms, which have promised $5.5 to $5.6 trillion of an increase in the United States economy. And fifth, and most importantly, that Mitt Romney will work towards championing small businesses. Small businesses are terribly afraid of President Obama and his questionable tax policies and regulations. The Obama administration's uncertainty in tax policies have led to an estimated 2.3 million jobs being cut from the market because businesses are just unsure of what they can expect under Obama. Lastly, we must consider that under small businesses, President Mitt Romney will work towards repealing the Dodd-Frank Act, which will allow small businesses and startup companies to establish and raise capital. So when we're looking at today's debate, we must remember several things. Firstly, that President Obama is not the man that we elected in 2008. Our economy has seen considerable shrinkage. There are no new jobs, and we must empower America. How are we going to do this? Through Mitt Romney's 5-point plan: energy independence, increasing better trade, giving our workers the skills they need to succeed, promoting small business, and cutting our national deficit. We are not going to survive with 4 more years of President Obama. We must elect Mitt Romney for President of the United States. Thank you.
This election, there's one crucial question that we need to ask ourselves as voters. Are we, the American people, better off today than we were 4 years ago? In terms of the economy, healthcare, social issues, and energy policy, the answer is undeniably yes. 4 years ago, President Obama inherited an economy that was bleeding 800,000 jobs every month, a looming budget deficit that fed off of the 2 wars and tax cuts started under the Bush administration, and a housing market crisis that left millions of Americans reeling. Now let's fast forward to the present. Today, we face an economy that has experienced 32 straight months of job growth, a housing market that's on the mend, and a plan for economic recovery into the future, which economists Reinhart and Rogoff describe as the most effective way to get America out of a financial recession. Add to that a stimulus package, which Mark Zandi, former advisor to John McCain, says adds 3 million jobs, and an auto industry bailout despite the efforts of Governor Romney that has saved 1 million jobs. More importantly, let's look to President Obama's plan for the future, which, when it comes to the budget, is balanced and reasonable. On the other hand, Mitt Romney offers a mathematically incoherent tax plan and, on day 1 in office, plans to cut 5% of funding from low-income students, underserved communities, and groundbreaking science and research. 4 years ago, our healthcare system still excluded people with pre-existing conditions, young adults who were just entering the job market, and those who could not afford insurance. Already, Obamacare has started to take effect. By 2022, the Affordable Care Act, which is based on Governor Romney's own plans in Massachusetts, would extend coverage to 33 million more Americans. It would also give young adults, like us in this very room, the opportunity to stay on their parents' coverage plans, which would mean that we, who are already heaped with increasing student debts, don't need the additional burden of being burdened with uninsurance. Finally, according to Congressional Budget Office estimates, Obamacare will cut the deficit by $100 billion over the next 10 years. Governor Romney seems to have forgotten the merits of his own plan and now opposes Obamacare, wanting to repeal it and, more importantly, voucherize Medicare, which would give seniors a lump sum of money and allow them to realize on their own that they can't buy adequate health care. 4 years ago, the social arena in America still provided loopholes for discrimination against women. In 2009, however, President Obama's first bill signed into law was the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, which aimed to stop wage discrimination and allowed women to get equal pay for equal work. Governor Romney, however, stood against this bill. Unlike Governor Romney, we and the president both believe that women should not be discriminated against based on the absence of a Y chromosome. Additionally, Governor Romney plans to cut funding to Planned Parenthood. These cuts will not be effective, however, if they aim to stop abortion, since federal funding for abortion is already prohibited under law. What these cuts will instead do is cut funding to important things such as Pap tests, breast cancer screenings, STD treatments, and family planning and prenatal services, leaving 3 million American women without a safety net. 4 years ago, America finally started to realize the effects of foreign oil dependency, something that Obama has remedied by an all-of-the-above approach involving natural gas, clean coal, renewables, and efficiency improvements. Governor Romney's approach, however, is hindered by the blinders of a drill baby drill mentality that isn't getting America where it needs to be. In the end, this election is a choice. It's a choice between the jumbled, half-baked, inconsistent policies of Governor Romney and the clear and comprehensive policies of President Obama in terms of the energy, healthcare, social issues, and economy that over the past 4 years have brought America progress, recovery, and growth. Thank you.
All right, so we're now going to enter into our Q&A phase. So we're alternate who will go first, starting with the Democrats. Each side will have about 1.5 minutes for their opening, and then we'll do a 30-second rebuttal, and then based on the conversation, we might or may not extend that. So our first question, one of the fundamental differences in this election is the appropriate role of government. Please briefly articulate your candidate's view and explain why it is the best course for the United States.
Thanks for the question, Gabe. The United States is founded on the principles of the American dream and of upward mobility. And that, at its core, says that no matter what zip code you're born in, you have an equal chance at earning a middle-class life if you play by the rules and work hard. And President Obama believes that, and he's made investments to try to make that possible. He invested in trying to provide jobs for folks. He's invested in our schools through a race to the top. He invested to ensure that folks have, adequate health insurance, and he invested in improving science and medical research. And at the end of the day, coming back to the core belief of the Democratic Party and of President Obama is a society where we're in this together. And we know that, look, if you're a CEO and you've done well, that's great. And we applaud you. And in fact, a lot of us use products that those folks have developed. But you know what? You develop those products in factories with workers that we all paid to educate. You develop those products in factories that we all paid to protect. You develop those products on roads that we all paid to build. So at the end of the day, all we're asking is to say, look, let folks contribute to this social contract so that low-income Americans have a shot at achieving the American dream.
Raj just said that America was founded on the principles of making sure that no matter what zip code you live in, you can move up. I think he forgets exactly what happened during the Revolutionary War and the Constitutional Convention. America was founded on the principles of defending the rights and liberties of individual Americans against the encroachments of tyranny and overbearing government. American government was founded, the federal government was founded to give power to the states and local municipalities, to protect the rights of those people who elect our leaders, and to make sure that we didn't repeat the mistakes of Europe. American government isn't founded to invest in companies. It's not founded to mandate commerce. It's not founded to tell us how we can live our lives better or take our money to spend it for us. The American government, it does have to tax us for some reasons to provide basic services for the poor and national defense and other important things. But when you can spend your own money, the American government should let you do that. Those are the core principles that our country was founded on: individualism and self-reliance. If you think that the government can spend your money better than you can, then you can donate. They, in fact, accept donations for taxes. But I think that most of you, when you grow older, will choose to keep your own money and try to get your taxes as low as possible, because you can have the most effective use of and spending of your money.
The fundamental difference here is that there's a reality that there are things in society that individuals alone can't do. If you look at basic research, no corporation is going to invest in basic scientific research because that's a collective good. That's something we as a society all benefit from. And we agree that the government, the revolution happened to keep and protect individual liberties. Well, it's also an individual liberty to protect people's rights to same-sex marriage. And Governor Romney has supported a constitutional amendment to ban that.
Okay. I really don't think that corporations don't research or provide benefits for Americans. I don't think Apple is a government entity. I don't think fracking, which is getting us to energy independence, was made up in a university. Corporations in the private sector are what drive this country's great economy and what fuel the innovation that makes America dynamic and great.
You're exactly right, Anthony. Fracking is helping us get energy independent. But you know what? Where did fracking come from? It started with a DOE grant. It started from research that came from universities on seismic data. This is part of what the government does. It's helping things get off the ground, and the government gets out of the way. And more important, let's just go back to this. You're talking about spending your own money. That's great. Nobody here is saying 70%, 80% a tax rate. All we're saying is take a little bit of money to equalize opportunity. That's all we're saying. Because right now, 42% of kids born in the lowest income quintile stay there as adults. That is not upward mobility. That's the antithesis of the American dream.
Poverty upsets us as it upsets all Americans, and there is too much poverty in this country. But the fact that you said that the fundamental purpose of America is to equalize everyone's situation instead of protect our individual rights and liberties, that's the answer.
I said equalize opportunity. I said equalize opportunity.
Please let him have his rebuttal.
That's a Marxist response. That's the purpose of the Soviet government.
That's not
the purpose of the American government isn't to equalize opportunity. The purpose of the American government is individual rights. It's not each according to his own means. That's not what it says in the Constitution. That's the Communist Manifesto.
No, it's common sense to give
Raj,
folks a shot. That's all we're
question.
talking about.
Thank you. As we saw in both parties' opening statements, the economy is one of the central issues of this election, both short-term and long-term. So I'd like to first start with a short-term question. So looking at short-term, can you please go ahead and articulate why your candidate is going to make the biggest short-term difference for the current people who are out of work or underemployed, starting with the Rice Conservative Forum?
Okay, firstly, you look at Mitt Romney's 5-point plan. We'd like to point out that 12 million jobs is a significant number of jobs. And I'd also like you to keep in mind that under President Obama's term, we've seen a decrease to 4 million jobs in the market. Furthermore, the number of people looking for jobs has decreased since President Obama has taken office. President Obama has done nothing to foster jobs. Furthermore, you must consider, what is President Obama going to do in the next 4 years to improve the economy? We've seen the GDP shrink. We've seen the debt triple. What can he do to save this economy? You need a president who's looking towards short-term goals, a president who's looking to inject jobs into the market, while also keeping in mind long-term growth, like Mitt Romney has. And in the long term, we're going to decrease regulations so that small businesses can get started. They can raise capital and increase jobs. President Obama has done nothing but to stifle these industries. We've seen regulation under President Obama quadruple since the last administration. President Obama is stifling our economy. We've seen GDP fall, debt triple. You have to consider what Obama's done and what he's promised to do. In the short term, I see no clear winner other than Mitt Romney to increase jobs, promote prosperity, and increase new trade markets in Latin America, an area that President Obama has pretty much left untouched. We need an economy that's going to rise both domestically and internationally. Mitt Romney is the president for you.
Look, we feel the facts stand on their own. Under President Obama, the economy has created 5 million jobs. And this has been borne out by people like John McCain's own economic advisor, Mark Zandi. Additionally, President Obama has a very clear vision for creating jobs in the future. The American Jobs Act, which he outlined, has a vision for increasing investment in infrastructure. That it's nonpartisan. It was an idea that came up with Kay Bailey Hutchinson, a senator here in Texas. And it was actually blocked by Republican colleagues of President Romney, or of Governor Romney in Congress. On the point of regulation, BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, has shown that regulatory burdens account for only 0.3% of job loss in America. 0.3%. We're not arguing about 0.3% here. We're talking about the 99.7% of jobs that are lost. And that's because of a lack of infrastructure, a lack of demand, and a lack of investment. Now, let's turn to Mitt Romney's plan. He proposes that he'll create 12 million jobs by the end of his first term. Where did that number come from? If you look at the studies that 12 million figure comes from, the studies authors alone have distanced themselves from this claim because it was based on assumptions that are simply not going to hold water in today.
I think there's a clear difference between us and the other side of the aisle. We believe individual businesses and individuals are what bring this economy back. We believe that the individual brings us back from recession to prosperity, not the government. The government can take our money all at once, and it can spend it inefficiently on mismanaged programs and waste, or it can let us take our own money and spend it on what is most vital to our own interest. The businesses in the US face the highest corporate tax rate in the world. Why don't we cut that so that businesses can grow on their own, hire more employees, and boost the economy? we see new taxes coming from Obamacare that are going to stifle more job creation coming up in the next year. And furthermore, regulations, why don't you ask the actual businesses that have to comply with them, that face thousands of dollars of compliance costs, rather than ask the federal government that isn't actually involved in that process?
I think the question was about short-term relief, and when you look to what Governor Romney wants to do on day one in office if he gets elected, is to repeal the Affordable Care Act, which the Congressional Budget Office estimates is going to save us $1 trillion over 10 years. So the Affordable Care Act, which Romney would repeal on day one, is actually projected to help us cut the deficit. So in terms of short term, Romney is already making the wrong decision. But then I think that you've got to consider where Barack Obama was when he took office on day one. And at that point, the Bush-era tax cuts were still going on. We had 2 unfunded wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and the recession was going on. So sure, we were losing 800,000 jobs about every month when President Barack Obama took office. But you've got to remember that that was because of policies that were put in place when he was not president.
We're going to move on to the next question. Just keep on time. So, obviously, the policies that your candidates potentially implement are going to have impacts long into the future. So I want to talk a little about why your candidate's policies is the best for 10, 20, 30 years to set America on the course for the future. We'll start with the Young Democrats.
Yeah, so again, what is going to be the industries of the future, right? We need education, and President Obama has made clear with investments in both K-12 education with Race to the Top, which again was putting money out there, right? And states could go compete for it, right? Number 2, he's trying to invest in infrastructure. He tried that with the American Jobs Act, but of course that was blocked by Republicans, including Congressman Paul Ryan, right? And the American Jobs Act would have improved the infrastructure, which the American Corps of Civil Engineers has given a D. How are we going to be able to, work in a 21st century economy if we have roads, bridges, and airports that are crumbling, right? And the third thing is, look, President Obama knows the importance of scientific and medical research. And he said, look, as opposed to Governor Romney over here, who wants to cut it by 5% on day one. And then he tells us he wants to balance the budget within 4 years without touching the military, Medicare, and Social Security. That means he's going to cut every program, every single one. I'm talking about education, research, energy, by 32% in the first 4 years. How is that going to help us 10 years down the road?
And I want to jump in here. Google was originally funded. The research that went into Google's search algorithm was funded by a $2 million National Science Foundation grant. It is now a $200 billion company. That's the kind of research and development and technology that Governor Romney would cut.
Thank you. I think there are a lot of issues that are going on in that response right there. What they're equating the government to is leading to the boom of capitalism. They want to continue to pump money into our economy. And all of their arguments that you just heard are them telling you that the more money that President Obama spends on the United States, the more possible returns we might get. Furthermore, don't think that Mitt Romney is going to cut the entire NSF or the NIH at all. We are simply going to make cuts where they are necessary to maintain our budget. What kind of nation would we be if we had all of the academic research in the world, but we couldn't afford food for our citizens, or we couldn't help maintain our global alliances through our military? A country that is simply filled with research but nothing else, starving people, 1 in 6 people being under poverty? Oh, wait, that's what we have right now. 1 in 6 Americans live in poverty. You need a president that's going to lead to long-term growth and long-term jobs. Furthermore, the idea of Google, which was a startup company, would not be possible today because President Obama has done nothing but to regulate and prevent small startup companies from raising the capital they need to increase jobs. Furthermore, on the notion of military spending, we need that money to maintain a strong international presence. In just yesterday's debate, we heard President Obama mention that we're going to have the largest military demonstration with our ally, Israel, this week, something we could not do if we didn't have one of the largest militaries in the world, because we need to be strong both internationally and domestically through the plans of Mitt Romney.
I think for the question of long-term growth, we really just need to look at the progress we've made over the past 4 years. We talk about this economic plan for recovery, which economists Reinhardt and Rogoff are telling you is actually the best way to get America out of a financial recession. So when we're looking for the long haul, obviously we're not through with the recovery, but clearly Obama's plan, President Obama's plan, is going to get us where we need to go. But then let's look at Mitt Romney's plan. Governor Romney proposes all of these things, but there's really no balance here. Governor Romney even said that he would not accept a plan that proposed $10 of spending increases for every $1 of tax hikes.
And I just want to go back to this
That's
military
the
point.
amount of time on your response.
Okay, can I get 5 seconds real quick?
5 seconds.
Yeah,
go.
okay. I just want to go back to the point on the military. The cuts, right, are something that the military chiefs have agreed to, right? They don't want more money. They're willing to make the cuts. They said they are willing to make these cuts.
That's 5 seconds.
Okay. Thanks for giving me 6, Gabe.
Let me try to address all those inaccuracies and lies. First of all,
Tell the truth, Anthony.
Obama came in with Democratic majorities in the House and Senate and passed a gargantuan stimulus bill. But instead of improving infrastructure, he invested in pet projects like Solyndra that turned out to be corrupt and provide us with no jobs. Second of all, he doesn't have any. Another plan is to ask for us to spend more money that we don't have to just pump into the economy. Third, if Obama was so good for business and development, why is the business community overwhelmingly against this president in a way that we haven't seen in American history? And fourth, I'm going to add that the military leaders do what their civilian leader tells them because that's what their duty is to this country. The idea that the leaders of this country want to cut their own programs and budgets ignores common sense and every point of history, every request the Defense Department wants. The Admiral of the Navy does not want to decommission ships.
So again, let's look at the facts, right? We've been citing studies. And if you look at Mark Zandi, this guy runs Moody's Analytics. He advises corporations. He advised John McCain. The analysis is very clear. The stimulus bill created almost 4 million jobs. That's a success. And that's led to the fact that we're moving in the right direction. You want to call Brockman Hall here at Rice, the new physics wing, the research and development wing, a pet project, Anthony? We can call it that. But we believe that it represents the future. That's where the newest technologies and newest industries are going to be created.
And I just want to get back to this point very quickly about the supermajority, right? Republicans filibustered every single thing in the Senate. They filibustered his trying to put someone on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, filibustered nominating justices, filibustered a Nobel Peace Prize winning economist. Come on. And then they filibustered the American Jobs Act, which Mark Zandi, again, guys, I just want to drive home the
Please stop there, Rod. Let them respond real fast. We got to get moving.
Okay. We know you love Mark Zintek, or whatever his name is.
He advised
But
John McCain.
The facts is that our economy, we are not in a good place. We have lost an unbelievable amount of jobs. I don't care what study says they were created. You look around this country, people are hurting. And second of all, I'm going to say that...
Oops. Are you going to say oops?
I have the third thing I'm going to cut in my pocket.
We'll go on moving to the next question.
I really want to bring up the Bush tax cuts. Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about the economy, and something both parties also mentioned in their opening statements was America's energy policy. So I'd like you to just take a few more minutes and kind of outline what your candidate's plan is and why it is either better than the status quo on the Republican side or why the status quo is important. And this one will start with the with the conservative form.
Energy independence, that's a goal we should all want. When we're depending on countries in the Middle East that are against us for our oil supply, that's an economic threat and an existential threat. What we need is domestic oil production and production coming in from our allies. Rejecting this Keystone oil pipeline, why? For political party reasons, to maintain the environmental vote in certain states, because unfounded when studies already said there was no serious environmental threats from it, that's ridiculous. We need to expand offshore oil drilling. We have 4.22 trillion barrel of oil reserves in the US. That can last our current energy needs for 200 years. Funny, why is that not a serious issue? We're so focused on the environment, but we take it at the expense of our economy. We can drill for oil here, drill now in a safe way that protects the environment with appropriate regulations and cut off our dependence on foreign countries. We can accept the pipeline, and we can also invest in clean energy ways, but not through government subsidies. Government needs to stay out of the economy and let the private sector do its work. And that includes withdrawing subsidies for oil and gas companies as well. All of the subsidies need to go. We need to let the free market work. And I have full faith that our private sector will fulfill our energy needs in 2020 as Romney promises.
Look, we all agree that energy independence is important. It's extremely important. But how to get there matters a lot. So if we look at President Obama's record, he proposes an all-of-the-above approach, and that includes fossil fuels. Oil production on federal lands, on public lands, it's the highest it's been in many, many years under President Obama. And, oil is a global market. So just building a Keystone pipeline to Canada isn't going to make us any more energy independent than not having the pipeline. That's just the facts of the global energy market.
And okay, let's just get back to the Keystone pipeline. He didn't reject it for these political reasons. Let's be clear why he rejected it. In Nebraska, there's an aquifer, and the Nebraska governor and legislature held a special session to try to understand what the health risks were going to be, and they just didn't have enough time to come to a conclusion. So President Obama said, okay, we will reject it now so that we have time for the study. That's all he did. He did not reject for political reasons. And this southern portion of the Keystone pipeline from Cushing to Texas, President Obama, championed that because he knew that was going to help bring oil prices down. Right? And then let's talk about renewables. You guys want to, remove, tax breaks. That's great. That's great. Please do that. But then you also need to say that you're willing to put a price on carbon, right? Put something on cap and trade because we want to compete fairly, right? There is pollution that's associated with oil and natural gas, and that's got to be accounted for. Those are real lives on the line here. I'm talking about mercury and other pollutants.
Okay.
Do one rebuttal for each side because they're running a little behind.
I want to say that a carbon is a cap and trade, is a tax on everything in this country, and that if we want to compete fairly, that makes us compete unfairly with the rest of the world because we'll be at a disadvantage for our export markets in China and Latin America.
Okay, other things to consider. It's the private sector that has drastically expanded oil production in the U.S. Federal oil production, it's about the same. Why is that? Because Bush invested in allowing federal. We're seeing the results of Bush's permits process. Under the Obama administration, drilling permits are down. Oil leases down 40% from the Bush administration. We're seeing there's a difference between regulating industry and regulating it to death. And that's what we're seeing under the Obama administration.
Okay, so the thing with President Obama is that he has an all-of-the-above approach. He not only increases oil and natural gas productions, but he's also looking to energy efficiency by doubling fuel economy standards, and most importantly, he looks to renewables. He's doubled generation in wind and solar power, showing that he can do all of the above and not just one part of it.
And furthermore, the Bureau of Land Management actually says that the only reason why those leases were shown as a decrease was because in 2007, there was simply more of those leases. I think that it's important to consider the complete lack of refutation from Governor Romney's proponents, that the fact is that in 20 years, since 20 years, we are at an all-time natural gas production import low. So that means that we're producing here more now than we've ever before. Given the fact that our oil production has never been this high in 16 years, you can't argue that President Barack Obama isn't a proponent for energy independence and that he doesn't include oil in that.
Your argument is based on expansion.
We need to move on. Thanks, okay. James. So I'd like to change gears a little bit slightly and move a little bit to the deficit. So both candidates have expressed their desire to help reduce the deficit going forward and have made that a key concern. I'd like you to talk a little bit about what are going to be the costs or the pains that your candidate is going to have to impose to make that a reality. So what are the negative effects that we're going to see in order to get the deficit under control? And this is starting with the Dems.
So President Obama, during the budget crisis we saw last summer, summer before last, President Obama proposed a balanced budget deal. Approach that looked at both in terms of raising revenues and cutting costs, a sensible approach. Let's look at Governor Romney's proposal. Governor Romney wants to cut taxes across the board. That would add $5 trillion. Then he wants to increase defense spending. That would add $2 trillion. And when asked how he can balance the budget by increasing the deficit by $7 trillion, Governor Romney has no answers. That lack of clarity, it's just intellectually dishonest. And that's not how we're going to get on a sustainable path when you look at the debt and the deficit.
And now look, is there going to be pain when you cut? Absolutely. We want to be perfectly clear about that. But the president says, let's do it in a balanced way. For every $2.5 of spending cuts, get $1 of revenue increases. That's very similar to a Simpson-Bowles, which said for every $3 of revenue, for every $3 of spending cuts, $1 of revenue increases, right? And the spending cuts are going to be, in different places, including allowing the Bush tax cuts to expire, right? Those top-level Bush tax cuts on millionaires and billionaires. Now, the Republican friends over here have a significantly different approach. They want to extend tax cuts on millionaires and billionaires, and then even more than the Bush tax cuts, lower them by 20% more. Folks, if you keep cutting, you cannot close the deficit. It's arithmetic.
I think there's a little bit of a misconception about the $5 trillion tax cut. Although there will be cuts in rates, as Governor Romney has said many times, he will close loopholes and get rid of some deductions, especially on higher income people. And I think what a lot of people forget about these tax cuts in the rates, by bringing rates down, that's going to allow small businesses especially to hire more people and get more people paying into the tax system. So while there will be cuts, the balances will come both from getting rid of loopholes and deductions and by having more people paying into the system because they are now employed, which is a really great thing for our economy.
Another key component of that is the fundamental economics 101 tax policy. Lower the rate, broaden the base. When you lower the rates, you get more people working, more people investing, you have a broader base to tax on, and your revenues actually increase. Recent point, Bush tax cut. 01-03 tax cut. 2005, we had the highest federal revenue of ever in the U.S. history. Cut the taxes, revenue increased. That's what Romney is trying to follow.
Romney tax reform is reported to increase the United States economy by 7.4% within the first term.
And then I would say that Barack Obama having the Republicans walk away from the deficit deal is just wrong. Bob Woodward, the distinguished journalist, wrote in his recent book that Obama was the one who walked away. It was Obama who walked away from the House Republicans, just like he's refused in almost every instance to start bipartisanship dialogue with the other side.
So we can talk about compromise. Here's compromise. As Raj said, President Obama put out a plan that balanced tax increases and spending cuts to get the budget balanced, right? Governor Romney, during the primary season, went on stage and said openly that he would reject any plan that cut $10 of federal spending while only raising $1 of taxes. So the ratio of 10 to 1, he rejected. That's not a path to compromise. That's not a path to bipartisanship. That's the reason the deals fell apart, because of folks like Governor Romney who are unwilling to meet in the middle.
And then James rightly points out, lowering the rates, broadening the base. That's the strategy, right? Romney's very clear on lowering the rates, 20% across the board. That's pretty easy for us, folks. He doesn't tell us how he's going to broaden the base, right? And then when he's asked about it, he says, I'm very unclear on which deductions I'm going to eliminate. And then when he's pressed a little bit more, this is what he says. He says, I'm going to cap the amount of deductions people can take at some number. I think he picked 25,000. But if we look at the data, that's only going to raise $1 trillion. But he's cutting revenue by $5 trillion. $5 trillion minus $1 trillion, $4 trillion of other cuts, which he's going to do from programs for low-income students, underserved communities, scientific and medical research.
All right. The other side is referring to the tax policy report. The problem was that is a static report. What does that mean? It completely neglects the change in behavior that comes as a result of policies. When taxes are cut, you have more money. That's money you can spend. That's tax revenue. That's money you can use if you're a corporation to hire more people. That's payroll taxes. So because of that, you can lower the rates and at the same time increase revenue, which is completely overlooked in the other side's arguments.
I'm glad that the Rice...
Let's go move on to the next question. So this one we'll start with the Conservative Forum and then move over to the Dems. So it's hard to have a debate without talking about the Health Care Act because it's something that's so opposed between the two parties. So I'd like you to kind of briefly describe why you believe that this is a change that needs to be made and why your candidate needs to make this change, essentially.
Well, first of all, I'm going to say there's a misconception about Governor Romney's plan. He doesn't want to repeal the pre-existing condition plan, and he doesn't want to repeal about you being on your parents' insurance plan. What he does want to repeal is a plan that we can't afford for and the federal government shouldn't be doing anyway. The report that the Obamacare is going to lower the deficit is contingent on Congress approving a Cadillac tax for unions that the Democrats in Congress simply won't pass because of their backers and unions. They have kicked the can down the road when they first passed Obamacare, and they'll kick the can down the road again. They don't have a way to pay for Obamacare, and insurance premiums are rising. Governor Romney's plan is to take the Obamacare and put it to the states. Local states know how to know their states best and can implement the most efficient plan. The Democrats accuse Romney of walking away from his Massachusetts plan, but he embraces it. He wants to give other states the opportunity to do what Massachusetts did. Make its own way, make its own policies, and do what it knows, what it and its people know is best for that individual state.
Okay, let's walk through Governor Romney's plan. Anthony said that Governor Romney doesn't support banning pre-existing conditions clause. Well, or does support. Let's look at the facts. Governor Romney has said that he only supports banning pre-existing conditions clauses for continuous coverage. So what does that mean in real terms? That means 90 million Americans will be subject to these arbitrary bans on the basis of pre-existing conditions. That's just the facts. Let's look at another one. Anthony says that, we can't afford Obamacare. CBO is very clear. Obamacare cuts $100 billion for the first 10 years and $1 trillion afterwards. Congress has already approved this Cadillac tax. That's already in the books. Now, Anthony also said that premiums are rising. It's true. Premiums have been rising. Premiums have been rising for 20, 30, 40 years. But guess what? Before the Affordable Care Act, premiums had been rising at around 10% every year, year in, year out. Kaiser just did a study. After the ACA passed, that rate has come down. Premiums are now rising at only 5%. That's a 50% decrease.
That's just not true about the Cadillac tax. That is voted on in 2014. And the fact that they compromised that is one of the main reasons that Peter Orszag, the budget director and one of the architects of the plan, resigned from Obama's administration.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what Peter Orszag also said. Peter Orszag just wrote a brilliant column talking about Romney's voucherization plan. So Governor Romney and Paul Ryan have said, look, we'll give seniors X amount of dollars, and they'll go out and spend on the private market, right? They'll compete, rates will come down, everything's hunky-dory. Look at the facts. That's not how it works. Studies have shown time and time again, CBO studies, BLS studies, that Medicare is in fact more efficient than its private counterparts. So by shifting to private plans, we're only going to increase healthcare costs and put that burden on seniors.
The good thing about the voucher system is that seniors would still be able to choose to stick with the government plan. And if the prices to shift to a private plan were higher, then seniors would probably choose to stick with the lower costs. But the good thing about the voucher system is that if there is a private plan that offers a plan for a lower price, then the seniors will still get the same amount of money that they would need for the government plan, and if they have excess money, then they can still use that. So the voucher system gives seniors more choice in the options in the healthcare system.
Okay, but again, let's look at the studies. Kaiser just came out with one in the last month that showed under the voucherization program, 60% of seniors would pay more out of pocket. 60%. That's not something that we as a nation can afford. That's just not sustainable.
And I just want to get back to this whole voucher thing. It sounds great in theory, right? The market working to reduce costs, but I just want to be perfectly honest with you folks. It's hard to go and see which doctor is better than the other. It's not like buying a pen, okay? It's very easy when I'm buying a pen to say this pen is good, this pen is not good. It's a lot harder when a doctor's telling me this doctor is good, this doctor is. How do I know? I don't understand scientific lingo to begin with, right? How can I even begin to make a decision? So it's completely different market, and there's economic problems with just using market to decide this.
If making important healthcare decisions is too complicated for you, and you want the government to make that decision for you, vote Obama for 2000.
I'm sorry, Anthony, don't distort the facts. It is just very difficult to compare two doctors or two hospitals. I don't understand scientific
lingo. We want Congress
Thank
to
you
do
guys.
that for
We're
us.
going to go and move on. So a quick intermission. There should be cards coming by for questions. We only have a couple more questions from me, and we'd like to get some audience questions. So please write your name on the card, your question, and if it's directed to one team or the other, and go and pass those to the ushers on the side.
I'm sorry about that.
All right, while they're writing questions, we have a couple more from me, though. I'd like to turn very briefly with one question on foreign policy, the subject of last night's debate. Can you please...
Wait a second.
Yeah, we'll give it in a second.
Noise right now. Pencils are coming around soon.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for kind of getting settled, and we apologize if those cars weren't out earlier.
They're going first.
This is y'all's to go first.
Okay, we're going first. Okay.
All right, so we'll go and move on to our next question. I'd like to turn just very briefly to foreign policy, starting with the Dems. Please just go ahead and briefly explain what the U.S. foreign policy, what the role of the United States should be in the world with your candidate as president.
Okay. So basically, the role of the United States, obviously, we have power, we have this presence, and we do need to step in. But on the whole, President Obama was right. We do have a lot of places where we need to step back. Let's look at his leadership in Libya. In Libya, the Republicans and the conservatives actually criticized President Obama for leading from behind. But later on, that turned out to be the biggest advantage when it came to Libya. When the revolution was occurring, America leading from behind was actually crucial because we provided air force, we provided these airstrikes that were crucial to the rebels, but at the same time we were able to prevent this anti-American sentiment from burgeoning in these countries by imposing our presence on them, really.
And you know, I just want to be clear. The goal of the Obama foreign policy is very simple: multilateralism, right? We're going to reject this notion of the United States going in by itself. We saw that with Iraq. You guys know that did not end well. $2 trillion, thousands of American lives, hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians. And what did the president do? He said, okay, I'm going to bring the troops home. And he's done that. Governor Romney wants to keep 10,000 troops there, right? What did the president do? He took out Osama bin Laden, the guy who was the mastermind behind 3,000 deaths on 9/11. And then what did he do? He said, okay, in Afghanistan, he's going to have a systematic approach to drawing us down in 2014. Governor Romney, yes, I support it. I don't. Yes, I do. I don't. All this flip-flopping back and forth.
I've heard the term flip-flop before. Let's talk.
So have I. So have I.
In 2004, from President Bush, when he was just... we'll talk about that later.
Your boy.
But let's talk about Romney's foreign policy. Mainly, it's the same as, in many ways, it's the same as Obama. And Obama's done some good things on foreign policy. Romney supported the Libya intervention, and everyone's happy that Osama bin Laden is dead. What Romney wants to do, though, is to continue our multilateral diplomacy by being friends with Israel and maintaining a military that can be in 2 theaters at once, and a strong military that has such overwhelming force that it's a deterrence to other countries around the world. President Obama is willing to take a gamble with our national defense that the wars of the future will be counterinsurgency. Governor Romney has the wisdom to know that he can't see the future and that we need a strong military now and tomorrow so that we can address to threats we don't see.
Just in the last debate, President Barack Obama was very proud of the fact that our national defense spends more than any of the other 10 nations that are below us in terms of national security. So he's not at all a proponent of taking a gamble when it comes to our national defense. In fact, he wants to give the military what exactly it is they want. And as of now, they've not asked for anything more. But Governor Romney is very proud of the fact that he's going to increase the defense budget even though nobody asked for it. He was very proud of the point that even though the Navy didn't want it, he's going to build them 3 additional submarines a year. All of that is unnecessary expenditures that we don't need, which add on to the fact that the Romney economic plan doesn't account for the increases that he's going to make there.
Also, let's look at the fact that Romney's foreign policy really doesn't disagree with President Obama on anything. All it says is we need to do the same things in a more assertive manner, which means that we're risking more conflict and avoiding multilateralism, which is the basis of President Obama's foreign policy.
Yeah. To be clear, Romney is against putting boots on the ground just like Obama. And I don't think it should be an insult that Obama and Romney share many foreign policy goals. We don't dispute that. That's a great thing. It means we're doing the right thing in foreign policy right now. But what we need to focus on is a weakness in defense is this is just a lie. The Navy wants 314 ships. We have 285. They want more ships. And Romney wants to fund that. Obama doesn't. Look at PolitiFact or one of those fact checkers if you like, because they rated it false for last debate when Obama said it.
You also need to consider that our foreign policy is not solely based on our military and how strong we appear physically in other nations. We need to consider how we are perceived as an economic power. We currently owe per household $10,000 to China alone. We simply cannot allow this debt to keep accumulating. We need to show other nations that we are economically powerful. We cannot continue U.S. aid if we ourselves cannot afford to supply these basic needs to our own citizens. So when you're considering which candidate you like better in foreign policy, you need to consider which candidate is going to keep you militarily strong abroad and also send the perceptual image that we are a strong nation economically, that we can afford our policies, we can afford to continue being allies with other nations, and we can afford to continue providing aid to other nations.
That's exactly right.
Okay, we need to go and move on to the next question,
right,
guys.
Just
No,
Gabe, we got to get 30
not on
seconds.
this one.
I think we should end there.
So I'd like to step away a little bit from policy and more to leadership characteristics very briefly. So we'll start with the Republicans. For many Americans, the appearance of seemingly endless partisan gridlock is incredibly frustrating. Please explain why your candidate will be more effective in overcoming this gridlock.
Governor Romney has a proven track record. He's a Republican governor in one of the bluest states in America. President Obama, on the other hand, has done nothing for bipartisanship. He gave a very nice speech in 2004, which we all remember. But think about his 4 years in office. What has he done for bipartisanship? What has he done to reach out to the Republicans? Why did the DREAM Act, which is in many ways bipartisan, fail? Why didn't he get Senator John McCain's support? Why did he walk away from the debt negotiations? Why did he ram down health care through reconciliation after Massachusetts elected a Republican senator whose main policy was to defeat it, showing that even Massachusetts wanted to defeat Obamacare? Why has Obama in no way helped make a not bipartisan central pathway for moderates in this country? Instead, he's worked with Nancy Pelosi and those on the very left to put what he ideologically wants. Governor Romney has a proven track record of bipartisanship. Obama has a proven track record of the opposite.
And looking at the criticism of this Republican gridlock, let's look at the Senate, where the filibuster was common. Why? When you don't let the minority speak on issues, when you don't let them offer amendments, they kind of get upset. They want to have the opportunity to have votes on their proposals as well as yours. When you try to silence your opposition, yes, they grow in strength of resistance. And when you stop the Republicans in Senate from being able to offer their own amendments on legislation like Obamacare, yes, they get angry and they filibuster. Not because they are so opposed to the democratic process, but because they want the opportunity to express their views as well, and for their amendments to be heard, and for their alternate views of legislation to be considered on the floor as well.
All right, so on the issue of bipartisanship, partisan gridlock, let's just lay out the facts. Senator Mitch McConnell, the majority leader in Congress on the Republican side, in the Senate, said openly, we want to make healthcare Obama's Waterloo. We want, our main goal is to make sure President Obama is a one-term president. That's not ceding the grounds for bipartisanship.
And again, let's just walk through the claims that were made. So this notion of Governor Romney being a Republican governor in a blue state, that, first of all, that was a different Mitt Romney than we have today. That's the first thing. Second of all, he vetoed the bills, and then they were passed by the Massachusetts legislature over his veto. That's the first thing. Second of all, you're talking about the president not putting forth bipartisan plans. The American Jobs Act, as Rahul said, contained an infrastructure bank designed by two senators, Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson, who last time I checked was a Republican, and Senator John Kerry, who I think is a Democrat. That sounds pretty bipartisan to me. And the third thing about this notion of walking away from the debt deal, the president said that we want $2.5 for every dollar of revenue increases. Republicans said no. They did not want any revenue increases. And number 4, about the filibuster. Okay, I understand the notions of you want to make him a one-term president, but why are you filibustering justices? Even Chief Justice John Roberts, who was just here a week ago, came out and said, we have a backlog because Republicans are filibustering. And then a Nobel Peace Prize winning economist who the president nominated for the Federal Reserve, Peter Diamond. Why was a Nobel Prize winning economist filibustered from the Federal Reserve? It just does not make sense.
Well, Governor Romney isn't the head of the Senate, first of all. And second of all, the idea that Obama...
His buddies are.
Is his buddies, Mitch McConnell, they're best friends. The idea that President Obama can't get his policies passed because of the mean Republican Senate, I think I want in my president someone who can build bridges and deal with partisanship. Partisanship isn't new in Washington. It's not something that's innovative by the new Republican Senate in 2008. They didn't just come up with the idea of trying to defeat a president or making him one term. But people like President Bill Clinton were able to work together with the legislatures. The idea that partisanship is new is ludicrous. And
So I see the time's up. So there are more filibusters now in these two congressional sessions than have ever been there before, number one. And number two, okay, filibuster some things, but why justices, Nobel Peace Prize winners, and this is the big one, plans that would create jobs not by using government money. That's the genius of the infrastructure bank. It leverages private dollars, and companies are sitting on $2 trillion of capital. Why? Because there's no demand.
And if Governor Romney was so committed to bipartisanship and compromise, why would he reject a plan that $1 of tax increases for every $10 of spending cuts? That's as far right as you can get.
Rebuttal?
All right, thank y'all. So I'll have one more question, and then we'll move to the audience questions. And on this one, we're not going to have any rebuttal. It's just going to be a minute 30 each side, and then we'll go to the audience questions. So for our final question from me, please describe to us the quintessential moment, event, or idea that shows either, if you're the Dems, why President Obama deserves another 4 years in office, or why Mitt Romney should be the next president of the United States.
Which side first?
Y'all start first.
You know, what we've seen with President Obama is we have a president who's willing to make tough choices, tough political choices for the benefit of the country. Okay, when we had the passage of the Affordable Care Act, President Obama knew it wasn't necessarily going to be politically expedient right away, right? It would take time for people to start appreciating the benefits of the act. He did it because it meant 32 more million Americans that would have health insurance, 32 million that would be covered who could go to their doctor and pay for their services. He's willing to make those hard sacrifices. And, you know, when you look at even the case of national security, you saw President Obama willing to risk failure, willing to move heaven and earth to put his presidency on the line to take down Osama bin Laden. That's someone who puts the country forward.
And I think even broader than that, the vision of expanding equality of opportunity for 100% of Americans. You know, President Obama, first act, Lilly Ledbetter Act, because we don't believe, and Democrats don't believe, that moms and sisters deserve less pay than fathers and brothers. That's just not what we believe in. And Governor Romney vacillated on the Lilly Ledbetter Act, right? President Obama has also invested in programs that are going to help low-income kids try to achieve their American dream. That was Race to the Top. And, you know, at least President Obama cares for 100% of the American people. I'm not sure I can say the same about Governor Romney.
Okay, that's okay. So the risks that President Obama is willing to take, we've seen exactly what that risk is. It's $5 trillion in debt. $5 trillion in debt. He's willing to spend every last dollar that our country doesn't have on his failed policies. Look at Obamacare. It's costing us so much money. And what is it going to do? It's going to make it harder for small businesses to pay for the health care for these individuals. What has Obama done with jobs? We've seen so many people, 3% of our workforce, drop out of looking for jobs because the economy and the job economy is just not good. What has he done for college graduates? He's done nothing to help with student loans, and he's also left 53% of us underemployed or unemployed. What other risks has President Obama taken? He's taken several risks domestically, allowing the United States to lead to 1 in every 6 people falling below the poverty line. President Obama has taken one risk, spending more money. How much more money could he possibly spend? On the issue of women's rights, I'd like to turn the speech to Rachel.
I'd like to respond to the statements made about the Lilly Ledbetter Act. I think, although Obama did sign the act, the Lilly Ledbetter Act has had no significant any shift on women's pay or equal pay for women. When the year before it was passed in 2008, women were paid 77.1 cents for every dollar that their male counterparts. Right now, it's 77.4 cents. So a 0.3 cent change. Yes, it's great that President Obama supports equal pay for women, but so does Mitt Romney. He has nothing against equal pay for women. But the Lilly Ledbetter Act has not been effective. And the Lilly Ledbetter Act was really about extending the statute of limitations for suing employers in discrimination.
Thank you very much to both teams for the debate we have tonight. We're going to shift to a couple audience questions. If they wrote their name, I'll try and recognize them, but if not, we'll go anonymous. So our first question is anonymous. If I can find it. So they're interested in the education system. So is it the role of the federal government what is the role of the federal government in education? And when schools are competing for federal and state funds for different standards, how do you keep from having different standards arise for different schools in different parts of the country? We'll go and start with the Republicans and then go to the Dems.
Conservative form.
Conservative form, excuse me.
Mitt Romney's plan for education has a lot to do with increasing school choice. What Mitt Romney wants to do with education is, of course, we want to improve education and make America a more competitive place in the world in regard to education. But one really great way to do that is increasing the choice that students have in what schools they can attend. And the way that Mitt Romney wants to do this is make funds that the federal government provides to low-income and students with disabilities, make those funds portable so that parents and students can make the decision to go to a private school or a charter school or to maybe do tutoring and to invest in their education so they have more choice in where their students are enrolled and what sort of education the students are receiving. He also wants to use something called the DC Opportunity Scholarship as a model for the nation, and that's something that Obama in his budget proposal defunded, and he does not want to provide funding for this program, which has been highly successful in helping low-income students get a better education.
Just go.
Okay, so President Obama's educational policies, involve the Race to the Top program, which is something that even Governor Romney has said is a good idea. Basically, what it does is gives each state the opportunity to experiment with the education system within its state, but more importantly, it gives these states incentives to, well, race to the top. So the people at the top get rewarded for their behavior, and in essence, it's pushed our educational standards up. But then look at what Governor Romney is suggesting. What they just said is that they would make portable the funds that are currently allocated towards low-income students. Let's look again to the fact that Governor Romney's budget proposes that we cut the funding to these low-income students, meaning that he's not actually making an investment in education where it matters.
And I just want to go back to a couple of facts here. They talked about the DC Opportunity Scholarship. So that's essentially a voucher program in Washington, D.C. It doesn't work, folks. It does not increase educational outcomes. It doesn't increase high school graduation rates. It does not increase educational attainment, period. Second of all, they didn't even mention Pell Grants, right? Okay, I just want to put a stat out here. 29% of high achieving, those on the top third of the SAT, low-income students go to college. 75% of high-income, high-achieving students go to college. So that means, comparing apples to apples here about as well as we can, we've got high-income students going to college 3 times more likely. Why is that? Because college is expensive, and a lot of low-income folks cannot borrow money from their parents to go to college. So the government's got to invest in Pell Grants because this creates spillover effects. There are positive externalities, positive benefits to all of us of a society when folks get educated, period, end of story.
I have a few questions here about Iran. I'm going to try and combine them all. But essentially it boils down to what is the appropriate American response for preventing Iran from getting nuclear arms or containing their influence in the region? And we'll start this time with the Democratic, Young Dems.
I think we've seen the appropriate response being carried out by the Obama administration. We're looking for a multilateral approach to get countries all across the world agree to sanctions on Iran. These sanctions are crippling. They've sent their currency inflating like mad. They've put serious economic pain and put major pressure on the leaders of Iran to succumb to negotiation.
And look, 2 things have just happened very recently that I want to point out. The first one is there are reports that Iran might potentially be coming to the table with the United States in one-on-one discussions, first time in history, right? That's the result of putting crippling sanctions, the hardest sanctions in the history of sanctions. Number 2, there's also fraction within the Iranian regime. Just today, President Ahmadinejad is actually having a lot of friction with the head of the judiciary in Iran. Folks, this is all the result of huge crippling sanctions coupled with oil embargoes, right? This is hurting the Iranians, right? And they will be coming to the table. So we just want to give the sanctions time to work and not, aggressively, hawkishly rush into war.
Because we can solve this problem without shedding any American blood or firing any bullets.
The sanctions against Iran were a good thing. We could have used stronger ones, but overall, we definitely approve of those. However, when we reach out and say we're going to hold diplomatic talks with the president of Iran, first off, let me point out, Obama came in office in 2008 and said, I'll meet with president of Iran without preconditions. It really set the tone for the relationship with Iran. We need to be tougher on Iran in our diplomacy. We need to closer align ourselves with Israel. We need to stop saying we'll have talks, because let's be real. Iran is moving forward. They're increasing their centrifuges. They're increasing their capacity to produce uranium. They're not slowing down. This talks, it's just their way to play games. It's their way to distract us from the issue here, which is they're moving towards a nuclear weapon. And we need to stop engaging these frivolous talks. They're not going to work. Yes, let's give sanctions time to work, but we step back and we isolate them diplomatically and economically, and we let them work, yes, but we stop negotiating with them, because let's be real, they're not interested. When they come and say, we're going to stop producing, that's when we can come to the table and say, okay, now we'll consider lifting these sanctions.
And as you could see in the foreign policy debate, Obama and Romney agree on a lot of things about Iran. But because the Democrats want to distract from Obama's atrocious record with the economy, they're implying that Romney is going to get us to a war in Iran. They said that we're going to rush into war hawkishly. Romney has never said anything like that, and he explicitly rejected that idea in the foreign policy debate.
So I just want to go back to one quick point that James made. He said, let's give up on the talks because they don't work. Ambassador Derejian's right here, and Secretary Baker made 16 trips to Syria before we got them at the table, right? Discussions take time. We're going to have to give them a shot. That's all the Obama administration wants to do.
Obama clearly said in the foreign policy debate, when asked about the one-on-one talks with Iran, that report was completely and utterly false.
Okay, but the thing is that the only reason that sanctions are ever going to be effective is to get Iran to the negotiating table. If you
and how has Obama done that?
Sure,
the New York Times reported that they might have happened, and Obama rejected it.
And wait. There have already been a lot of talks, and yes, talks take time. Progress comes in small steps, Anthony. I know you want things to come overnight. It's not going to happen. Small steps are going to take us toward the end goal.
What we're trying to say is that there's no reason to have economic sanctions if you're not going to listen to the talks that Iran is going to propose. Sure, they haven't proposed talks yet, maybe, but we're showing you the tension that's already happening within the Iranian regime due to the sanctions placed upon them. Now, if they come forward to offer us talks, we need to take that into consideration. We can't just shut them down and treat them as a hostile regime. Otherwise, the sanctions were useless.
Would the Republicans like to respond really fast?
Well, I think Romney wouldn't rule out talks completely, but we probably would view Iran as a hostile regime.
Okay, so we're going to move on to two quick questions that are dedicated to just one team at a time. So what we'll do is the team that's dedicated to will have about a minute, and then if the other team chooses, we'll have 30 seconds for a response, but it's dedicated to one team. So this one, the first one's for the Young Dems. It's from Matt Carey. And to paraphrase what's here, he says that businesses right now feel like the number one threat to the recovery is the oncoming fiscal cliff, but that the Obama administration right now isn't doing anything about that. If you could comment on that and why there aren't actions being taken now, and what we could do to make business feel more secure about the future.
Look, we saw in the budget negotiations with the debt ceiling debacle that the problem was not President Obama, right? I mean, if you look at the facts, the 2.5 to 1 ratio, that's a bipartisan compromise ratio. So the fact that there wasn't a deal, the fact that the Republicans were willing to put extremist views on the line and as a result threaten America's economic prestige, that's the whole reason we have this fiscal cliff happening in the first place. That's a Republican policy.
And I just want to define the fiscal cliff for everyone. So the fiscal cliff says at the end of this year, Bush tax cuts will expire. And then there's what's called a sequester going into place, which essentially has across-the-board cuts. Again, this was a deal agreed upon last year by both Democrats and Republicans. And there are some other expirations of payroll tax cut and a few others. Point is, we have to avoid this, period, end of story, right? And what the president is wanting to do is say, okay, let's have a comprehensive deficit reduction plan that raises revenues and cuts spending. Right? Do them both, because you can't just tax your way out of this. We agree. But you also can't cut spending your way out of this either.
And I think the conservatives are no doubt going to say that this hurts small businesses because Romney has acclaimed himself as a champion for small businesses. I think that it's important to consider what the small business majority put out after one of the recent debates. They said that only 3% of them would be affected by the Bush-era tax cuts, but also to consider the fact that a joint committee on taxation said that you've got to figure out what exactly he means when he says small business. I'm sorry, but if your revenue is about $50 million a year, you are not a small business. So when Mitt Romney contends that he's going to take care of small businesses, it's got to be clear that semantics are really playing in his favor, and he doesn't actually mean what he says.
Okay. First of all, something is bipartisan or a compromise when both parties agree to it, not when Raj and Rahul say it is bipartisan.
I agree.
Spending the money we don't have and going us to further debt is something that the conservative movement and the Republican Party isn't willing to do for our generation, and it is not bipartisan. If it was bipartisan, they would sign on to the bill and pass it.
That's just not true, Anthony.
If something is bipartisan, Republicans would support it as well as Democrats.
Yeah.
It is not bipartisan when you say it is bipartisan, and Republicans should support it.
Senator Alan Simpson and Secretary of Treasury Erskine Bowles. Do I need to say more?
He walked away from the Simpsons Bowl the deficit talks.
Also, I just want to point out, let's look at this fiscal cliff. What are two key components of it? The expiration of the Bush tax cuts, which the administration opposes, and the taxes added by Obamacare. That is a significant factor in the taxes that are coming in this fiscal cliff that are actually going to create this fiscal crisis.
All right, this next question is directed to the Conservative Forum.
It's just not true.
On the tax side, it is.
Okay, so we're gonna go and move on to our next question. Thanks, guys. So this one is, I'm just gonna read it straight on, and we'll start with the Republican or the Conservative Forum, excuse me, and then the Young Dems will have a chance to respond. It says, I'm a Teach for America teacher who teaches at Title I school. Many of my students are undocumented but were brought here as children. Governor Romney has stated he would veto the DREAM Act. What would you say to my students who want to go to college?
I'm going to say, first of all, that Romney does support a path to citizenship for children who are brought here with parents of illegal immigrants. And I'm second of all going to say that Obama's policy, his executive order on illegal immigration, makes a confusing middle ground that disagrees with Congress and leaves some constitutional questions. In fact, it's going through the courts right now. Obama's saying that since he can't work with the Republicans in Congress and he refuses to compromise on the DREAM Act or make any sort of bipartisan immigration compromise, he's just going to tell the government not to enforce the law. What other laws can he choose not to enforce? We need a government who respects the separate powers of government and instead of just issuing quick executive orders for political gain, works with the legislature and works with Congress for real reform. One part of Romney's 5-part plan is increasing legal immigration and bringing people to this country. And we're going to make sure that the children of people who are brought here illegally have a path to citizenship.
Also, the concept of this DREAM Act being a one-party idea is not true. There are Republicans in Congress, especially in the Senate, that support this as well. At the time of Obama's executive order, Senator Hutchinson from Texas, of all people, was working on an alternate form of legislation that could pass the Senate and pass Congress and form a compromise between two different views on what exactly the structure of a DREAM Act should be. It was only minor differences in the details of the legislation itself that is stopping this from getting through into the Senate.
So I would just like to point out that it seems that we agree with the Conservative Forum that President Obama has pushed forward a bipartisan act.
That isn't what we said at all.
Wait, hold on. I think James just said that there were Republican senators who supported the DREAM Act. No.
An alternate version of it.
Let's check the transcript.
We're going to say, no. What James said is that there are Republican senators that support immigration reform that leaves a path to citizenship for children of people who moved here illegally. The fact that there's bipartisan support and the fact that Obama should have been able to pass it is just another version of his failed policies and inability to lead this country.
Okay, please let the Dems respond.
Look. It's very clear, guys. President Obama supports the DREAM Act, which gives kids who have come here, right, when they were 5, 6, 7 years old, perhaps, the only country they know is America, right? They've grown up in our schools. They're saying the Pledge of Allegiance every morning at their school, right? They are American. We want to give them a shot at becoming American citizens, a path to legalizing it. That's not saying we're going to, leave the border completely open. No, we're saying giving kids who have been here, who want to go to college, who want to help grow the economy, who are actually paying a lot of taxes. Let's be honest here. They're actually helping our economy. That's what we're saying. And Governor Romney talks about his new sort of quasi path to citizenship. Let's be clear. He has supported self-deportation. That is to say, making life so difficult for undocumented immigrants here in this country that they self-deport themselves. That is to say, take themselves back to their home country. Folks, this is a central issue because these are kids who have come here. They want to be American. They just want a shot at equality of opportunity. That's it.
I'm going to say that we agree that they need a shot to equality, and Romney does too. It's important issues like this that we need a president who can work with the other side. Obama had his chance. He had both houses. He waited to the lame duck session to try to jam this through Congress, and Congress said, no, we want to work on this. Senators like McCain and Rubio want to make a bill like this happen, but Obama hasn't reached out to them because he doesn't want to give them any credit. He wants to make executive orders and play politics with these people's lives.
I think Senator John McCain actually, yes, before he was at risk of losing to a Tea Party candidate in the primary, yes, he did. He did support a lot of these ideals. But he has moved to the right, just like all the other Republicans have.
He still says he would support it. And Rubio, who is a darling of the Tea Party, has said he wants to do something like this. Obama just
something like
this
sounds very vague to me.
All right. So we're gonna do one last question. I want to thank everyone who submitted questions. Sorry we didn't get to get to more of them tonight, but we're trying to run over time. At the end of the debate, if you would please pass your end debate ballots over, we'll collect those and have a percentage count for everybody. So this person seems not super excited with the leadership characteristics of either candidate. She says that Romney has been questioned as being fickle, while Obama not being strong enough. So as we leave tonight, I want you to kind of reinstate our confidence in the leadership abilities of your candidate. We'll start with the Dems this time. Is that right or backwards?
The leadership. I pointed this example earlier, but it's very telling. You saw in the Affordable Care Act and in the decision to take down bin Laden, tough choices. And that's really what being a leader is all about. Once a bill or a piece of policy hits President Obama's desk, it's not an easy one, right? All the easy solutions have been weeded out. And what you've seen in President Obama is a willingness that's very clear to take hard choices, to, in some cases, go against the advice. Joe Biden said that, we shouldn't go in, we shouldn't have taken down bin Laden. Obama took a risk, was willing to do that, and in the end has made our country safer and more prosperous because of that.
And I think at the end of the day, you want to look at President Obama, who understands the concerns of the entire country, right? He was a community organizer. He's been on the ground. He understands what it's like to grow up with a single mother, to grow up in poverty, to grow up where it's tough to get to college. In fact, he was just finished paying off his student loans, just like so many other American students here, so many of us.
And because of these values, you've seen a consistency. President Obama has always been very clear about his values and his ideals. Unfortunately, we can't always say the same for Governor Romney.
And it's very clear that at the end of the day, there's a difference in the two parties and a difference in the two candidates. One candidate supports 53% of Americans and a you're-on-your-own society. President Obama supports 100% of Americans and a we're all in this together society.
Thank you for your response. I think the most important thing we need to keep in mind here is who is really engaged with politics at this point. Just looking at the audience, so many people have lost touch with the debate. He said this, they said this, the study said this. What you really need to think about at the end of the day is what is the most important issue for our country right now? Is it bipartisanship? Is the war in Iran? Is it the war in the Middle East in general or not? The most important thing to everyone in this audience is the economy. We're all going to graduate from college. We all want jobs. Your students that Teach for America, when they go to college, they're going to want jobs too. The most important thing is that we need jobs and we need to cut spending. You want a president who's taking these things into account, not a president that's going to let us continue to spend money without accountability. How can I restore your faith in Romney? Is that one thing Romney has been consistent about throughout his campaign is that we need more jobs. We need fiscal responsibility in this country, and that's one thing that President Obama cannot say that he agrees with. 12 million more jobs at the end of his first term is all that I need to leave you with today. What is President Obama going to do in the next 4 years? The Young Dems cannot give you that answer because Obama has not given them that answer. We have no idea what the next 4 years are going to look like, but with Romney, we know that we're going to have 12 million more jobs.
And let me talk a little bit about these attacks on Romney and his character. David Axelrod and Obama have taken a page from Karl Rove and George Bush from 2004. They're calling Romney a flip-flopper and characterizing him and demonizing him because he's rich. But let's look at the policies. First of all, the 47% line was something that Romney regretted saying. He misspoke. Just like when Obama said he misspoke and regretted saying that Americans in rural areas cling to their religion and guns. Candidates sometimes say stupid things, and Romney did in this case say something a little stupid. But if you look past the mischaracterizations and the political attack ads, one candidate has solutions and the other candidate has more of the same.
And our candidate has solutions.
Thank you very much to all our debaters tonight, and thank you for coming in and watching this debate. Oh, see, I forgot we have concluding statements. So, if you're up for it, stick around for a couple more minutes. Yeah, 4 minutes. And I believe the Conservative Forum goes first. Thanks. Sorry. No worries.
All right. I'd like to thank you guys for coming here today. I'm a little bit of a political nut job. I love politics. I remember in 8th grade in 2004 watching Barack Obama give his Purple America speech about red states and blue states coming together. And I remember being a little inspired. I also remember in 2008, I was starting to develop my conservative beliefs more, but you know, Obama was really convincing me. I thought he was going to have a centrist path for this country and work with the other party. And so while I couldn't vote, I think I actually supported him. I did a lot of stupid things when I was a senior in high school. The truth of the matter is that Obama hasn't lived up to his promise. He's failed us. He hasn't reached out. He hasn't done anything to work with Republicans. He hasn't offered any new ideas other than spend more. And he simply just is attacking Romney with character assassination, saying that he's out of touch simply because he came up from a wealthy family. This is one of my last debates. In fact, it is my last debate. And I know that a lot of people here already have picked what side they're going to have. Some of them even have signs for their friends. And that's great. I love the horse race of politics. But I ask you to try to think about this race as if you were approaching it new, as if there weren't parties, as if you just had the candidates and you didn't have any preconceived notions. It's impossible, but try. I want you to look at what Obama has to offer. His legislation that he's going to propose. There's almost none. And despite the fact that he says it's bipartisan, the fact that Republicans have never supported any of his actions or any of these bills that they're talking about means that by definition they're not bipartisan. You have to have both sides. It's bipartisan. It's two. Governor Romney has a proven track record in Massachusetts. He's shown that he's willing to work with the sides. He's shown that he's a moderate. And he's shown that he can develop new solutions for this country. He has many bills he wants to pass. He has a plan that he wants to do on day one from office. He wants to make sure that the business community stops feeling strangled. He wants to grow this economy, and he wants to bring America back to our values. Our values that this country was founded on individual liberty. It was founded on a Constitution and a Bill of Rights that protects us from the government, that keeps government small and in the states and to the people. President Obama, as they have said, is about equalizing opportunity. It's about making sure that everyone is fair. But that means that the government gets to choose what is fair, what is equal opportunity. It gets to make the decisions. We don't want to let the government make those decisions because that invites an unbelievable amount of tyranny and abuse by the terms of the government. We want to let the market and we want to let the people decide. That's what the fundamental difference in this election is. It's whether you support a candidate who thinks that he knows better than you and that the government knows better than you, that you can't make decisions on healthcare because it's complicated and Raj said there's complicated scientific language. And whether you think that Congress should make that decision for you, or whether you think that you should be able to do the decision, whether you think there should be personal responsibility. And our generation is going to be the ones that truly suffer under this Obama administration. Not now, but 20 years from now, when we're paying off the interest of this debt to China. We don't have this money that they talk about. When he talks about the budget, that's money that we're borrowing, not money that we have. Romney understands that. He comes from business. He has a proven track record, and he's going to take us out of this debt crisis. He's going to bring back the economy. And that's why I hope that you vote Mitt Romney in 2012. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I just want to thank everyone for coming, and for our conservative counterparts, we're happy to have had this conversation with them today. Also, thank you to Gabe for moderating. When we vote in this election, we're going to be choosing what kind of country we want to live in. If you want a winner-take-all system with a candidate who said that it's his job to worry only about 53% of Americans, you should support Governor Romney. But if you want a candidate that has proven that he's in it for 100% of Americans, who believes that we should have equal opportunity and shared responsibility to make this country better, you should vote for President Barack Obama again. When this president took office, the economy was in free fall. US GDP had shrunk by 9%, and we were losing 800,000 jobs a month. So when the conservatives contend that the president didn't do anything, they ought to check the facts. Today, employment is growing. Banks are beginning to lend again. In a lot of places, housing prices are even picking up. In fact, according to the Commerce Department, just last month, housing starts have increased by 15%. Before suggesting that the president didn't do what was asked for economic recovery, it's important to consider that no president could have completely fixed the economic state that we were in when President Barack Obama took office in 2009. The president's recovery plan mitigated job loss and cut taxes for 95% of Americans. Additionally, in the past 32 months, we've seen 5.2 million private sector jobs added to the economy. And we could have done better. But just last year, congressional Republicans blocked the president's job plan that would have added another $1 million. So in their last speech, when they contend that the president didn't do anything, they really ought to check exactly what it is they're saying. Additionally, the president is responsible for adding more 500,000 manufacturing jobs to the economy. In fact, in this past presidential term, we've marked the first time we've seen an increase in manufacturing jobs since the 1990s. Consider, too, that the president's auto industry restructuring worked, saving more than 1 trillion jobs for GM, Chrysler, and auto parts manufacturers across the country. Governor Romney opposed President Barack Obama's plan when it came to saving the auto industry. So we have a choice. We have a choice between a candidate that saved the auto industry and increased job creation, or a candidate that wanted to completely oppose this idea that would have saved over 1 million jobs. Additionally, the bipartisan Simpson-Bowles Commission approves of the president's balanced debt reduction plan. The president proposes $4 trillion in debt reduction over a decade. So for every $2.50 in spending cuts, he wants to increase revenues by $1. And he also wants to propose tight controls on future spending. We think that this is a much better plan than Governor Romney's because the Romney plan fails the first test of fiscal responsibility. The numbers just don't add up. Governor Romney proposes $5 trillion in tax cuts that are heavily weighted to upper-income people, and he even rejected a plan that would increase revenue by $1 for every $10 of cuts made. Simply put, Mitt Romney wants to make the debt hole bigger before we try to dig ourselves out of it. And when asked how he intends to make up for the $5 trillion loss, Mitt Romney said that he would eliminate loopholes in the tax code, loopholes that our conservative counterparts were very proud to mention today. But never once did they say what those loopholes were, what exactly was going to be cut. No specifics were given. Why? Because Mitt Romney doesn't know what they are. We have a choice between a balanced approach to cut the debt or to take a sketchy deal. Mitt Romney and the conservatives don't even know the details of. The president's energy strategy is helping too. The boom in oil and gas production combined with the greater efficiency that's driven oil imports to a near 20-year low has made natural gas production at an all-time high. So when renewable energy production has doubled, we've seen that President Barack Obama's all-in-up sort of ideas when it comes to energy economics are actually working. So we have a choice between a candidate that wants America to work towards energy independence and one that remains firm in keeping us far from sustainable expansion towards independent production. Remember that in this election, we are deciding what kind of America we want to live in. We have the choice between a candidate that has expanded equal rights for women in the workforce so that our mothers and sisters are treated the same as our fathers and brothers when it comes to how they're going to be treated. But also consider that we're making a choice between a candidate who has decided to look through the glass ceiling and do nothing more than think that a binder full of women is going to be enough to shatter it.
Okay,
we have the choice between a candidate that has remained consistent on his stance on major issues and one that's contradicted himself time and time again.
That's all the time we have for conclusions. Sorry to cut you off. But thank you very much, everyone, coming for real this time. Please return in your ballots and look for our spring debate in the spring. Thank you.